Okay, I think it's enough with the pretense. I think I have to admit it. I'm not as young as I once was, and sadly I never was. But we have young people here who can tell us what the real story about the youth is. And our first speaker is exactly that. It's Yael Meier, who's the co-founder of Zeem. She's not only young, but she's achieved more in her young life than most of us have in our long lives. She is only, I'm allowed to say this about her, she's only 25 years old. But my God, has she achieved a lot. She's the co-founder of Zeem, and Zeem is the leading Gen Z agency which does consulting for huge companies around the world, how they can approach the Gen Z audience. She has written a book about Gen Z. She has been recognized as in the Forbes 30 under 30 several times. It is really amazing what she has achieved. She also implements TikTok channels for companies, and all of this just with a team of 30 people, all under 30. And I don't know what happens to them when they reach 30, but we shouldn't ask. Maybe she will tell us that. But we are delighted to welcome Yael, who will speak about Born to Roam, the new rules of travel for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Welcome Yael Meier to the stage.
Thank you, John, for this amazing introduction. I was almost fooled. I thought you were also 25 years old when you entered the stage, but but the hat, like we wear another color right now. I'm sorry. These aren't real ones? So, hello and welcome also from my side. I'm very excited to be here today and talk to you about the future. But before we do that, we'll have a look into the past. Who of you remembers this slide? You can raise your hands if you do. Yeah, some? Well, I don't. Because that's the first site that ever existed of Facebook. Back then, it was even called the Facebook, and you could only register via a Harvard email address. That was later on possible also for young people from other universities. And this new platform spread like wildfire, first across the USA and then to the whole world. And whilst young people were excited about this new platform, finding new friends online, older people shook their heads. They asked themselves, why on earth would I want to be online connected to someone if I have friends in real life? They laughed about this mania. Today, we know it's not called the Facebook anymore, but Meta, and the company makes over 100 billion in revenue, and no one laughs anymore. Stories like these repeat itself. For example, when TikTok came up, this silly platform where teenagers dance on streets doing silly dance moves. And it's Chinese, it's a huge hype, and I'm sure you've all know TikTok by now. And it's actually quite interesting how especially media laughed about it, the silly platform. But one look, for example, in the most recent music charts shows us one of many industries that is being turned upside down because of this silly platform. Or this funny thing here. Who has one at home? Some do. It's a Labubu. I'm sure everyone with teenage kids at home owns one of these. It's actually a toy that you can hang on your purse. So it's a funny gadget. And especially Gen Alphas and Gen Zs loved it. And the founder of Labubu just got like $1 billion richer this summer because they were such a huge hype among young customers. So we also see that companies struggle a lot with seeing innovation first and seeing it as an opportunity. Why is that? The answer to this question gives us Clay Christensen, a professor in his disruption theory. He says, the next big thing starts out looking like a toy. And who plays with toys? Exactly, it's the young ones. So we need to look at what young people are playing with right now to look into the future. But even the most intelligent people are being fooled by toys, as the example of Stephen Ballmer shows us. This is the former CEO of Microsoft, and in a legendary interview, he laughs about the just released iPhone. He says, that's nothing but a toy. Or the most important media is being fooled by toys. Like Forbes, when they covered, Nokia, can anyone catch the cell phone king? That was at the peak of the company, just before its fall, because the iPhone was released in 2007. And today, you'll have to explain to young people what Nokia even was. That makes it one of many brands that didn't manage to stay relevant to young customers. And that's happening a lot right now in this moment. And looking into the future, I can tell you guys, it's not getting better with the next generation. So why is this happening? We can look at the evolution theory to find an answer to that, because it says it's not the strongest that survive and not the most intelligent ones, but the one most responsive to change. So we need to anticipate change to stay relevant in the future. And there are actually some companies that did a quite good job in doing that. For example, Hugo Boss, the iconic fashion brand from Germany, when they got their new CEO, Daniel Grieder, like 5 years ago. And he changed their complete direction to reaching young people. And they invested a lot of money in marketing and had their best revenues in 2024. Or Stanley Cup, a 100-year-old cup that got a huge hype with young people and is very successful now. Or Veleda is a Swiss iconic brand that is having a turnover right now, also because they got a new CEO, Tina Müller, who is now focusing on young clients and actually releasing products that target this target group. And they had red numbers in 2023, and already last year, they had their best year in the history of Veleda. So we see young people are important. This young target group is important to us. We know that at SEAM, and that's why with a team of 30 young people under 30, we help companies reach this audience. And we see how important that is to rejuvenate these companies, because you need to stay relevant to young people to stay relevant in the future. But who are these young people? Who is this Gen Z? What color of hats do they wear? These two people up here are Gen Zs. On one side, you can see Max Verstappen, who probably dreams of his next Formula One World Championship, or Greta Thunberg, who dreams of a world without cars at all. Those two people couldn't be more different, but they're from the same generation. So it's very important to know for you guys that you can never look from one individual and look at the whole generation. We're not all the same. We are very different. But what makes us the same is the world in which we grew up in, the life context we've experienced. And that also makes these very different young people the same, because they grew up in a world, for example, that is very online. And that's our timeline in the life of Gen Z. We only know what's happened in these years. Like the first ones of us were born in 1995, the youngest one of us in 2010. And we don't know anything else than this. So everything that happened before 1995 didn't shape us because we didn't experience it. Let's make an example on what that means. Like, you can all close your eyes. You can close your eyes and think of the moment that you first heard of the terrible moment, 9/11. You can open your eyes again. And I've seen many people like nodding. And I believe that you've had an exact situation in your head when you've heard about this terrible happening. Like, you knew exactly where you were at that time, in that moment. For me, that's not the case. Because when it happened, I was 1 year old. So it didn't shape me at all. And when I walked through the airport like yesterday, I don't think, well, I'm so happy that there are all these controls. I feel very safe. But I wonder why even so many people are still flying. Because instead of terrorism, I was shaped by the climate crisis. And that changes my view on the world. And there are many happenings that you've all experienced that I didn't, that didn't shape me because of that. And others that shaped me in a different way than it did you. For example, we are called the true digital natives because we don't know a world without the internet. And I often wonder how you ever lived without the internet. No, how did you guys find any place without Google Maps? Well, I'm sure you've all known how to read cards. And we are also using platforms like Google Maps or Netflix, Spotify, Airbnb very intuitively. We are very high in our demands because everything is so easy accessible. Holidays are just one finger swipe away, same as every song, every music. We are also, through social media, always connected to the whole world. The world got very small for us, which is an amazing thing, in my opinion. But it's also hard if we look at numbers, because many young people struggle with all these possibilities that we have, and with always having to be like the other people we see on social media. And we see that in mental health, that is very bad for Gen Z, for example. And we also use the possibilities that social media and this connectivity gives us to actually spark movements that can change the world. We've also experienced crisis very young, for example, COVID, and I think that looking into the future, that will make us resilient. And rather new on this timeline is the topic AI. And you say that every time a new technology evolves, that actually shapes a generation. For me, it was the internet. And for the next generation, it will be AI. And my kids will one day ask me how I ever found any place without my AI assistant. Because that will be the new normal. And that will be what shapes the next generation. So you see, that's how you understand a generation. By looking through our eyes, through our glasses, to this world we grew up in, because that's what shaped us. So we now know how to understand Gen Z, but why is that even important? So, first, we've got money. Over 450 billion in consumer spending power, to be exact. And in tourism industry, it's actually quite interesting that it's Gen Z that books more frequently and earlier than any other generation or any other age group. Second, we don't want to work anymore. Yeah, I mean, that's what you could think if you look at all the headlines about our work ethic. But is it actually true? What's happening is that there just aren't enough of us in many areas of the world, at least, because we are the world's largest generation. But, for example, in whole Europe, we have a huge problem that there just aren't enough young people because the birth rates are very low. So the working market, for example, that's a graph, numbers from Germany. The working market, when boomers entered their careers, was looking very differently. That's the difference between how many people enter the working market and how many people leave it. So in the next 10 years, 30% more people will leave the market than enter it in Germany, Switzerland, and many other countries. And that's actually just changes on how the working market works, because people that enter now, or back then when boomers entered their careers, they actually had to work for their job and actually had to work hard to keep it, to get it. Today that's different. Today you can have high demands because you're very asked for. Like, people actually fight for young people to work for them. And I think that will also change now a lot with AI and with the possibilities of AI. Like, we see that right now that, for example, entry jobs are a lot less than they were even last year, and I think that will increase a lot over the next years. And the third reason why we need to understand Gen Z is because we're not loyal. And that sounds like something bad if we look at us as employees, but it's actually a good thing if we look at us as customers. Why I explained to you with an example of my father, because I recently told him about this new razor that is sustainable. You can get it by subscription directly to your home every month, and it's cheaper than any alternative. I was very excited about this because I've seen it on social media. And my dad told me that he would never use this razor because he believes in the same brand for over 30 years. Young people are a lot easier to win because we are not loyal yet to any brands. That's why, for example, new companies that come to the market often target a young audience group, because in marketing language, easy to win means nothing else than very cheap to win. So that's actually some very big opportunities you have right here. But we consume differently, and we are on different places and channels than we used to be. For example, we spend 224 minutes on the internet per day, which is a lot, more than any other generation. And what happens on our phone for us is as real and as relevant as what happens to us in real life. For example, we could have friends we never see in real life, but they are still true friends to us because we text them every single day. And it's also very important to us what happens on our phones, because it is where a lot of our life is happening. And our lives have shifted into the digital worlds, and companies couldn't keep up with that at the same pace. That's why so many companies fail in reaching us. So what does this mean, or how has this shift changed our travel behavior? And now we dive right into the topic. So for example, it changed our decision-making of our travels. Because 70% of Gen Z makes their purchasing decisions already during the inspiration phase, and 70% of that inspiration phase happens online. So when we are online, we decide on what we want to do. And that is very different than with other generations. It's not necessarily that we only buy or consume online, but it's where we make our decisions to buy or consume something. So if you aren't present online, we don't even think about, or we don't even consider purchasing something or using a brand. For example, with travels, it's not only the mouth-to-mouth or the talking on the family table about the travel or seeing it on some out-of-home campaign, but it's mostly on social media, on Instagram and on TikTok. That is where we decide where we want to travel to. We also see that in other numbers, where over 60% of young people say that social media influences their purchasing intentions or brand preferences. And let's look at this through a personal example of my Seychelles trip this year, because it was inspired by TikTok. I've seen it on my feed in September 2024, a beautiful video of a beautiful beach, and they said it was the most famous beach of the world, so I knew I wanted to go there. And only a few months later, I was there at the beach in January this year. It was amazing. And actually, what is also very interesting is how important influencers are for our purchasing decisions. For example, almost every second Gen Z has already thought about or purchased something because they've seen it at an influencer's page. And I think many of you here in the room can't relate to that, just based on the numbers, because that's very different with my generation than with others. So you might underestimate the power of influencer because you don't consume the same way that we do. So influencers are very important. So they were for me, because after I saw that video, I was looking at many other videos of influencers I already knew that were looking insane. So I knew, all right, I want to be at the exact same place like my favorite influencer that was by chance in the Seychelles right at the same time. So I knew, yes, I'm going there. So the takeaway for you, Gen Z gets inspired on social media and because of influencers, what travels they want to do. The second thing that changed is the booking process. So how we actually book. Before, you probably Googled or people would go to travel agencies, and Gen Z researches very differently. And here, social or TikTok is actually more important than Google on researching experiences. So you see that with restaurants or with places to go or to be. We don't Google that anymore, but we TikTok it. And then we see what looks cool, what looks nice. We already see the pictures and videos. We see how relevant the people that posted about it or how many likes the videos got of, for example, a certain restaurant. And that's how we decide if we wanted to go there or not. Also, ChatGPT obviously is very important for research because we can get many information in a second. And we see that in numbers that Gen Z uses AI much more frequently than any other generation because we adapt to new technologies just quicker. So, how did I do it? Because help, how do you get to the Seychelles? I asked the travel agency for the first time ever because it was a very complex trip. I've been to Australia once, but that was somehow easier because I had a friend there and she booked everything for me. So I didn't know it at all. So I asked the travel agency, not like a classic or a traditional travel agency, because actually I wouldn't even really know how to find them. But I saw ads on LinkedIn from Tourlane, like this new digital agency from Germany. They had a huge funding only last year. And their page seemed very nice, like it was very easy to access. They had a good Instagram, which was important to me because I saw, okay, they are actually legit. So I texted them and asked them if they can help me with my Seychelles trip. And I had to wait for their feedback because it takes them 3 to 5 business days to respond, which was a problem for me in that moment because I've just seen this video of this influencer and I knew I wanted to go there, so I needed to book. So I asked ChatGPT and got the most important information 5 days faster. So that means how many islands are on the Seychelles? Is it a country or how do I get there? What flights could I take from Switzerland? What do I do if I am there? Is it actually safe to be there? So ChatGPT helped me with most basic information, but not more. That was it. So step 3, I got more detailed information from travel influencers. And actually, I also did that for the first time, because I didn't know anything about the place I wanted to go to, that I checked for travel guides, for how to travel between islands, what's the best way to travel on the island, do they know any good car rentals for me because they are trusted. And there was this one guy that even had Google Maps, and also after I've been there, the advice he gave me on how to travel the Seychelles was actually very good and very accurate. So I bought his travel guide for 30 euros. And there was also a Google Map spots by him that had perfect photo spots, for example, on it that we actually looked for to take good pictures for Instagram, and good price for the money. And I actually value he created for me. So 5 days later, my trip was fully booked, and at the same time, the travel agency told me that they needed to start planning my trip at least 4 weeks before departure. Because you need to know that all of this happened like 2 weeks before we left, because we are a very spontaneous family. We went there with our 2 children and literally booked like a week before we wanted to leave. But the travel agency couldn't keep up with that quick, spontaneous trip we wanted to do. And I was actually very sad about it, because the lady from the travel agency, she texted me back on WhatsApp, even at the weekend, so only like a few hours after I texted her. We even called, like it was very quick, very uncomplicated. She was so nice. I really trusted her because she's been there. She was also speaking, she was a German woman, and she was there. She told us some very important advice, and I would have loved to book with them. But unfortunately, they couldn't do it because it was just too spontaneous for them. But I really trusted her. So I actually loved the experience of working with a person, having a human connection, and the trust of working with someone that has actually been somewhere. So for the next time, maybe I will actually plan my trip a lot earlier so I can work with this or with another travel agency, because I love the experience. So the takeaway: we know where to get all the information needed, and we use digital tools intuitively. And we expect travel agencies to be fast, to understand our travel wishes, and to communicate also on informal messenger services. So I really love that we could text on WhatsApp together. And what is also very interesting here, it was important to me that they had a good Instagram presence, because that showed me that they knew what I wanted to see when I was there. So what is also changed is the value of a trip. And here it gets very interesting. So our social media is like our EID card. So we curate who we are on our Instagrams. We post the aesthetics we like, we post who we are, we follow our friends. So it's actually more than just an online presence. It's like, it's us that is on there on social media. And we have developed a concept that is called the digital value extension. And that is very interesting. So we look at it on our Labubu example. That is actually the same for all generations. So you have a value, a functional value of a product. With the Labubu, it's that you can hang it on your purse. And you have a brand value. So the experience, the standing in line for 5 hours to get a Labubu. Or the stars wear it, so it's actually cool to wear it. Or that there are like some very expensive special editions that you can resell for a lot of money. So that's the brand value. But with Gen Z, or with young people, there's an extra value that you can create. And it's the digital value extension. So it's I purchased my Labubu, but I post it on my Instagram. So not only my 20 friends in my class can see that special edition Labubu that I own, but also hundreds or thousands of people that see my post. So Labubu created value to me because they are relevant on social media. So it's not only gaining attention, but you're actually creating value for a product if your social media presence is very well or very good. So that's very important. We want to be able to post about a product or an experience, and we want all the people to know how exciting that actually is, what I've just posted. So let's look at it on an example of an experience. So there's this very hyped DJ collective, Keine Musik. If you're on social media, you've seen it. Like, it's these 3 DJs from Berlin, and everybody posts about their cool sets. And they started out as underground DJs in Berlin, so very cool, only at private parties. And today, they fill stadiums of 60,000 people because they generated this huge hype. But they are also criticized a lot this year because their concerts look like this. People standing there with their phones up. Because it's not only about experiencing the music, but buying a very expensive, hard-to-get ticket is actually worth the money because I can post about it afterwards. So it's an interesting concept, but it's the way it is for young people. So being able to post about our experiences is important to us. It gives us value. With my travel, for example, it's the first comes the digital entertainment, so actually seeing it online, deciding I wanted to book. The moment on the beach was insane. You can believe me, beaches in Seychelles are amazing. But then comes the moment where I share it on social media, which is also very important. To me, of course, I have also a following, but it's not only for me with many followers, but also for every people, because you want to show your friends what you're doing right now, or people that you know what you're doing right now. And that's the digital value extension. So, US travel agencies need to know that, because if I don't trust you, that you know this, and that you know what are the actual nice places for me to go to, where can I do a nice photo for my Instagrams, I don't trust that you know what my world looks like. So I need you to be able to understand my world in order to trust you to help me with booking such an important trip as, for example, a big trip to the Seychelles. Because what is different with young people is that we travel shorter, more frequently, more spontaneously. Traveling is actually very important to us for also showing it to our friends, but also to experience it. So travel has become a powerful experience that can be collected and stored digitally. So we collect our travels, and we are open to spend a lot of money on it. So that makes us a very interesting target group to reach. So what does this mean for LCC? And what can you learn from your competition? So from digital travel agencies, I think the takeaway is how important customer experience for Gen Z is. So they actually managed to have a product that is Gen Z approved because it's easy, they connect with us on messenger platforms, and they have a good Instagram. Then ChatGPT isn't your competitor, not for real, because we can actually only get information out there. But I would never book anything because my ChatGPT told me to do so. But it's a place where I get information, so you can use it also to make your own process more efficiently. Travel influencers are also not your real competition, because these are one-person shows that run people companies that travel the world, so you can work with them, you can book them, or, and I think that's a very big opportunity for you, so many of them want to monetize their audience, their following, the people that trust them. But it's hard, it's not that easy. You can work with travel agencies, you can work with tourists tourist information centers, whatever, but it's still hard to actually monetize your followers. So they are very open, for example, to collaborate with you on a product. So you could collaborate with them on launching a product together where they can be entrepreneurs or be actually also financially very incentivized to really promote you or the product you put out together. It could be a travel guide, it could be something more, and I think that could be interesting for you to explore if you could do something there. And social media search engine, and I think that's also another opportunity for you, because it's a fact that we use social media to search for experiences we want to do, and you could use that for you as well by being present on social media, by having your own social media presence, showing young customers that you know their worlds, but also showing them, but also being present to them so they actually consider working with you. So professionalize your social media presence, because if you're not present on social media, you don't exist for young customers. Build your own channels or collaborate with influencers. and make your offering next-gen approved. So simple, fast processes, communication via messenger services, and test an Instagrammable Gen Z offer. So what can you learn from cases from other industries? And here we do a quick deep dive into retail. And that's very interesting because retail is the other industry that has been changed and turned upside down a lot by this shift to online. So it's, I think, tourism industry and also retail industry that is being really influenced by it. So we have the customer inspiration that's happening online on social media channels, through influencers, through games and platforms, and that drives to e-commerce sales or to stores. And we developed a social media first strategy in retail that helps actually bring people to buy something. So there's this jewelry brand from Germany, Purelay it's called. It's a startup. And it's very hyped in Germany, but in Switzerland it's not as known yet. And they have their annual, every year, jewelry calendar for Christmas. And we helped them to step foot into Switzerland market. So we generated over 220,000 francs in revenue via TikTok and Meta ads in only 1 month. And the price of one of these calendars is 220 francs. And we generated 18 million impressions and a massive increase in brand awareness. So after our campaign, Swiss people also knew what Purelay was. How did we do that? So first, we tested and we learned. So we spent about 10% of our ads budget on here. And we tested and validated different creative approaches. For example, branded content, influencer assets, UGC content, or faceless UGC. That are like many marketing words, but it makes sense. There we saw that, for example, influencer and UGC, which means like content that looks like someone just produced it from their bedrooms, these worked best. So we kept on testing with another 10% of the ads budget. And there we saw what angles in within these formats worked best. So influencers produced different colors, unboxings, they did try-ons, and we did the same with UGC content and saw that unboxings for influencers and get ready with me's for user-generated content worked best. So we scaled that by pouring the rest of the 80% of the ads budget into that. And that made it a very successful campaign because we managed to sell out all the calendars and actually created a very good return in revenue. Why is it interesting to you? It's to show you how interesting working with paid ad strategy is. So it's actually also something that you could test out if you build up your online presence by not only working with organic content, which means content you just post, but also work with ads budgets to actually try to make people buy something from you. And it works. So the takeaways, ad campaigns are scalable, try out and test. And social media is not just about entertainment, it's actually about making money. And influencer assets and authentic content works best for a young audience. So that's the case from another industry for you to take away from. And with that, I'm coming to an end with my presentation, and I'm very happy that you all were here. And here is a QR code to stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yael. Sorry, once you told me I wore the wrong color, I had to change. And I really appreciate you giving us. I mean, we would have had you for the whole day, but you told us you only work 1 hour a week as a Gen Z.
Work-life balance is important.
But it's not actually true, because you can hear Yael again this afternoon, where we have a specific workshop. So you can look forward to that. There's so many questions that one could ask. The one thing I will take one of the questions from the audience here, but the one thing I just very quickly want to ask you is, because I don't understand it. These guys standing at the concert, and I discuss this with my kids all the time, they don't, and you said it yourself, they go to take the photo instead of having the experience. And it's more important that they can then post it on Insta and whatever they post on TikTok and so on, than actually just enjoying it, just living it. And for some of us, that seems, it's more important I get the right angle and get the picture than actually living it. And I don't know if you can explain that to us, because I've looked for the answer for years.
I can try to, because it's actually interesting, because I feel like also young people see it as very stressful to be always comparing yourself online. And on the other hand, like the experience is still important. It's not only about posting a photo afterwards, but it is also important. It's like actually quite hard. Yeah, it's quite hard to explain, but both is important. The experience and the physical connection to people, it is important for young people as well. Don't be scared. But but also the posting about it, and it gets stressful. I agree.
It must do. I mean, I see the kids on there all the time. There's a question from the audience. I'll save the one about the agencies, because we have a panel later on, and you may not be an expert on how leisure travel agencies work. There's questions about why do companies always look for employees that require experience? It should be better to employ people that maybe don't have the experience. They're coming in with a new, fresh attitude. And I'm sure you would agree with that although experience is also important, then it's always so good to have. But, the problem is you also want employees, and you mentioned it, that may give you some loyalty and may work hard. And that's exactly the opposites of the ones you said that your employees. So how do you deal with that when you're used to employing people that work hard and are loyal to the company, building a career where maybe the Gen Zs is not exactly, they've got a different vision for their own life?
I think it's interesting because I believe that young people are still can be loyal to companies and are actually willing to give a lot to companies. You just have to know how to unlock that potential within them. So you need to understand them, and you need to give them a lot of trust as well, and also responsibility, because that's when we start to thrive. And that's why I think it's also so nice to see that you have all those young people here at this event this year, because I feel like this connection and talking to each other is so important, because that's where actual growth happens, and that's also where you can benefit from. So talk also to your young employees, to what they want, how they want it, what they could do better, because that's when you unlock their full potential and actually be successful.
Okay. There's a lot of questions coming in. Some of them I recommend you take to the workshop. Some of them I think were answered about, do young people spend on luxury travel, which they definitely do, because for some reason young people have money which we didn't have when I was young.
I can explain that one as well.
Okay.
It's interesting because you used to save up for a house or for like big purchases, and we don't do that anymore because it's just not worth it, because we know that we will never be able to afford our own home, for example, because it's just impossible these days. So we spend our money on like experiences in the now, or also like purchases in the now. So luxury, for example.
So you're living in the now. That's that. I mean, you're.
Yeah, I think we are.
No,
yes.
I think that's fabulous. I think that's fabulous. Final short question, short answer. Can we actually? I mean, does Gen Z want to talk to non-Gen Zers? So can we speak to Gen Zs, and will they listen to us?
Yes, they will. And I think they will be also very, they will feel a lot of, what's it called? Of value, or like being worshipped if you do. So I think it's actually very important that you talk to young people and not only about them.
Okay. I think we learned a lot of lessons. I think we learned the lessons that if we learn to speak some of your language and go into the social media and approach from our side, and then you will come towards us and speak to us as well.
Yes,
so I think
exactly.
with that, let's listen again to Yael this afternoon. But for now, many, many thanks for your input this morning. Yael, Meier.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention.